Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to look at three 52-week computer modeling stock predictions that were made for Snap-on, ticker SNA, Patrick Industries, ticker PATK, and the S&P 500 ETF, ticker SPY, to see how accurate they've been so far. These predictions were made about 3 months ago, and links to those original videos are in the description below. For a quick summary, the computer modeling is based on two methods, the M5 Rule and RandomForest. Then we also took the average of these two methods. So we'll see which of the three has been the most accurate to this point. So let's jump right into it. First, we'll take a look at Snap-on, and I'll point out the bold gray line here. To the left of the graph is the historical stock movement, and to the right are the predictions. So the M5 rule is the blue, random forest is the green, and the average is the yellow. So this goes out 52 weeks from when the predictions were first made on August 21st and going out to August of next year. Now, the red line is the actual stock movement from August 21st until this most recent Monday, November 13th. And the purple line is just my stock valuation, which is about $280, taking into account a margin of safety. And we can see here, since the predictions first started, the stock actually dropped, getting close to $250, but most recently jumping back up and currently trading around $275. And we can see it's mostly tracking the random forest, though it dropped a lot more than what random forest originally predicted. But if you can look out here, random forest actually had this drop off to about $250 out in January of 2024. So the stock drop actually occurred several months ahead of what I predicted. Now, in my Snap-on video, I did say if the stock did drop like this, I would buy in. And during this time period here, from about late September to late October, I actually put in about another $10,000 into Snap-on. And we can see the M5 rule was a lot more optimistic with an outlook, which did not pan out. And then the average is right in the middle. So I would say that the random forest has been the most accurate for Snap-on. And I will add another line here, which would show how close random forest tracked the actual stock movement. So the dash green line represents the percent difference between random forest and the actual stock movement during this time period. And we can see here the biggest delta happened in October when the stock dropped to that $250 range, which gave a delta of about 7%. But since then, the stock has recovered, currently trading in the $275 range. And the random forest prediction at this time was in the $265 range. So a little more than a 3% delta between the two currently, but I would say random forest is the most accurate, though at the current price, it's probably a little closer to the average, which at this time period, the average was $286. So that would be more of a 2% delta from where the stock is currently trading. But as I said, I think up to this point, random forest has been the most accurate, but we'll see how the next several months go. And I will do an update when Snap-on releases their 2023 financial results in Q1 of next year. So let's move on and we'll jump over to Patrick Industries to see how that prediction has panned out. Looking at the Patrick Industries graph now, same thing. The gray line is the historical, and then we have the predictions to the right, M5 in blue, random forest in green, and the average of the two in yellow. The red line is the stock movement, so this is from August 28th until this most recent Monday, November 13th. Now, the purple line is my valuation for Patrick Industries for the margin of safety, which I currently have at around $93. Now, looking at the projections on which is the most accurate, I would say it's not clear cut up to this point over the past 3 months. You can see here the stock jumped up right after I did the predictions, and each of the predictions actually showed a slight drop off. But eventually, Patrick did drop off, actually going down to the about the low $70 range. But since then, recovering and currently tracking the average of the two. But that probably most happened over the last couple of weeks, maybe from mid to late October until mid-November. And we can see here the current stock is trading around $83, and the average here was projecting around $82. So pretty close. And same thing, I'm going to pull up the other line, which shows the percentage difference, and I will do the average here so we can see how close the average has been tracking Patrick Industries. So the yellow dash line here is now the percentage difference between the average and the actual stock movement. And we can see here they had some pretty significant deltas hitting about 10%. But as I mentioned, over the past couple of weeks, it has been a lot closer in that 2 to 3% delta between the average and the actual stock movement. And again, so far, not really a clear cut on which is going to be the most accurate. It could potentially be RandomForest, but we'll see how it goes over the next several months. But I would say, at least over the past couple of weeks, the average is the most accurate in tracking the current stock movement. So let's move on and we'll look at the S&P 500 ETF to see how closely the predictions tracked the movement for that. So we got the SPY ETF graph up, which tracks the S&P 500. And same thing, the gray line to the left is historical, and the predictions are to the right. And this is as of August 28th, going to the most recent Monday, November 13th. And we can see the M5 Rule is the most accurate prediction that's currently tracking the current movement of the ETF in red. And it's been pretty close for the first probably month. Going into September, we can see the blue and red were pretty close, but then the S&P 500 had this dip, but has recovered over the past couple of weeks and is slightly higher than the M5 Rule prediction for this time. So I'm going to pull up the other line, which shows the actual percent delta between M5 Rule this time and the SPY ETF. So we have the dash blue line up now, which shows the percent delta between the M5 Rule and the actual stock movement during this period. But we can see here in the beginning from that late August time period and actually going into early October, it was fairly close from about 1.5% to about 3% difference. But then when the S&P 500 took that big drop mid to late October, it jumped up to about a 7 or just over a 7% delta between the two. But since early November until now, or at least this prior Monday, November 13th, we can see that gap has significantly closed from about 1 to where we are today, just under 1%. So the SPY ETF as of November 13th was around $440, while the M5 prediction was about $438. So it's pretty close, and we'll see how the next several months play out to see how closely we can maintain this close tracking with the M5 Rule prediction. So to recap, first for Snap-on, the random forest method has been the most accurate to date, and the prediction did forecast that price drop that we saw on the graph. However, the drop actually occurred sooner than forecasted. Then for Patrick Industries, it doesn't appear to be a clear indicator on which computer modeling method is the most accurate so far, but at least for the past couple of weeks, the average of the two methods has been the closest during this time period. But I do look forward over the next several months to see how everything plays out and to determine if there is a clear indicator on which has been the most accurate for that stock movement. And finally, for the S&P 500 ETF using the SPY, that has been the most accurate of the three using the M5 Rule method. As we saw, very closely accurate in the first probably month and a half, and then again over the past couple of weeks in November. Just excluding that little time period in mid to late October where the S&P 500 took that big drop. But as I mentioned, since then it recovered, and now we're kind of tracking 1 or just slightly under 1%, at least for the past week or two. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.